think so.
Super. Well, I think most of you are familiar with us and know that we like to start these meetings with something of a grounding. And I think we have the perfect one for today and our talk today. This is Start Close In by David White. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way of starting the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To find another's voice, follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes a private ear listening to another. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake the other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing close in, the step you don't want to take. And Ellen, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you to everyone who has shown up tonight. I'm so happy to see your faces and I'm so glad to be here. And thank you to Pam for including me tonight. It has been a pleasure to work with you to get to this point, and I'm so excited for tonight. In just a minute, we're going to go into breakout pairs. So I want to share first as a model for what you will do in your groups. My name is Ellen Holloway, and I have been involved with Seeing Whiteness for about 5 years now. And I'm here tonight because it has taught me honesty and authentic relationships and to, in a way, to show love to people and to myself in a way that I didn't know before. And Carolyn, we don't need the,
Okay.
we don't need that quite yet until after breakout.
Okay.
And what I noticed as I began this work is that it was helpful to use the guidelines that Seeing Whiteness teaches us, not just in race work, especially in race work, it is very useful. And also, I noticed that those guidelines were helpful in other aspects of my life, even if it was something as simple as getting a family member to help me take the trash out, or something more complex like a very difficult conversation with my parents about aging. And so when the topic came up tonight to talk about using Seeing Whiteness to talk about politics with people, I was very excited. And so I'm grateful to be here. And so as you go, I'm going to send it to Pam, but then as we go to breakouts, you'll say your name, why you're here tonight. And if you could think about one person that you might want to try to engage in conversation around politics, if you'll have a brief description of that person. So Pam? Oh, we can't hear you, Pam.
That won't work. Hi, I'm Pam Sugarman. I know many and not all of you. I too, like Ellen, use Seeing Whiteness guidelines and noticing practice have changed my life. And I also am a very politically active person. And I love to go knocking doors and to engage people in conversation. I believe that this is reweaving relationship, like real people, and also reweaving democracy, because anytime we're talking about something that's important to me and important to our civic life and our community and our the people who govern us, that feels right to me. I've done a lot of work this cycle in investing in groups that are going to peers, Black and Brown and Young, particularly because those conversations among peers, I think, are the most effective. And I thought to myself, but what about my conversations? Who are the people who I'm close to, who I, if literally in 6 states, or 8 states, the election's going to be decided by 1 vote per precinct, then I actually can make a difference by having the conversations that I love to have indoors anyway and starting close in. So for me, that was how we got to today. And I'll tell you later about the person I spoke to just a few hours ago.
Carolyn will send us to breakout pairs. We'll have 4 minutes, 2 minutes for each person. And at the 2-minute mark, Carolyn will send an announcement to switch. Again, your name, why you're here, and who might you be in conversation with.
Okay, ready? Yep. Okay, starting my timer.
Lucy needs to be put somewhere. It looks, Lucy, you want to go in a breakout room?
Lucy should
Yes.
be in room 2.
Okay. It may be my phone. Is it not sending
There
me?
you go. Here we go. I'm going to send you right now.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, no, that's not it.
Let me try.
If not, it's okay. I can wait because
Oh,
I'm
we
just
can all visit. Hi, Lucy. How are you? Unless Ellen wants quiet.
Well,
Do you want
except
quiet,
we
Ellen?
have to tell Eve, nobody, I'm going to move
Oh.
Eve.
Oh,
I'll go join you. I can join Eve without you doing
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
Where's Eve? By herself? Yep.
She's in room 2.
Close all rooms. Hold on. Join room 2. I can do it. I'm good at that.
Oh,
Okay.
y'all, sorry. Yeah, that's my fault. Now I'm sorry.
No
I'm seeing
problem.
the breakout room. Wasn't looking at my phone. Sorry. Okay. Wait, is this Ellen?
this is this general room is Ellen. I'm not in room 2.
Okay. Sorry, I'm doing this without video. So I'm with Ellen right now.
Just, yeah, and Lucy, just tell us those things, who it is you might speak with.
Thank you. Okay, yes, I would say, gosh, I'm the person who I'm having the most trouble with is my daughter-in-law, um, and she's feels very strongly about certain issues and is in very high conflict with it with other family members, and so I'm trying to navigate those conversations to the point where it's become so challenging that it's going to impact whether they visit for the holidays or not. So mine's a little different in that respect. Trying to help her gain some perspective um, on our family and helping her just helping her navigate this these political differences in a way that's healthy and for our family. And then I would say I've also in South Carolina, and so other folks I've run into are, which I've been surprised at, is Black women who are not for who I would think that they would be for, and I've been curious about that, but also careful um, to have those conversations. So I'd love just some support there as well.
Thank you for sharing, Lucy. Carolyn, is there someone you want to share about?
I not one person in particular. There are probably several people. Let me close the rooms. And I will have a chance to, speak with all of them, I think, in the next the coming days. Like Lucy said, some of it is huge family members, it's big conversations, and I've had successful conversations, which we'll hear about a little bit later, or at least one this summer. But I kind of what Lucy said made me think, we've practiced through Seeing Whiteness, having difficult conversations and learning how to do it and stay in them and sit with the discomfort. But the person I had the conversation with this summer had not had that opportunity. So I'm glad we're all talking about this tonight.
Mhm.
It's funny because right before this, I was in here getting ready and my son came in with this agenda of like trying to get me to agree that conspiracy theories are a good idea. And I was like, I'm getting ready to have this conversation about having difficult conversations. And he said, well, good, because you're good at it.
Oh,
That's awesome.
that's great.
So what I'd like to do is just take a few, like 1 minute, and in either the chat or come off mute and voice it. Could you find a word or two to describe or maybe categorize your potential partner so we can get an idea to see what kinds of partners we could engage?
For clarity's sake, do you mean the person that I want to talk with about the election when you say partner?
Yes, I'm
As
sorry.
opposed to
Thank you for
who we
asking
just
that.
met with, or, okay, got it.
Yes. Who would you like to engage in difficult political conversations? Or maybe like to is too strong a word. Okay, I see a one-issue voter, a relative, a loved one, someone who doesn't want to vote at all, someone who has given up, doesn't have hope.
Mm.
Women my age and demographic who is a Trump person, okay? Anyone in fear? Young people in my family? Anyone else?
I was starting to type, but I'll just say it because my typing wasn't going well.
Go ahead.
Someone who's still kind of searching for, their views are changing, but they're trying to figure out how they feel about things and so are open to a conversation.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'll say as well, people who have chosen not to vote.
Mm. So
I'm
I'm
gonna-
hearing, oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to add one more too that Elizabeth and I were just sort of talking about. I feel surrounded by like-minded people who all kind of have similar beliefs. But I'm not sure that we're moving the needle amongst ourselves by having the same conversations and the same beliefs all the time too. So I think that it's important to engage in a deeper level with people who even believe the things that you do as well, in order to, inspire action or figure out how to talk to people who maybe don't fit that.
So basically, I've heard lots of even opposing the people, someone who's decided the same as me, someone who's decided opposite me, someone who's undecided, someone who's young, someone who's old, someone my age, someone. So I'm hearing that really it could be anyone, right? It could be anyone. Carolyn, if you would not mind putting up the slides. And so we have to start with the why. Why engage in these conversations? And we all know that we're in the midst of a close election. We've already said that. And more than 80% of Americans express concern about the Republican versus Democratic divide, with supporters of both parties perceiving the divide as growing, according to Pew Research Center. Recent research suggests, however, that the divide is more perceived than real, with Republicans and Democrats overestimating their differences in terms of policy preferences and political engagement. This perception underpins partisan animosity and a lack of hope about the future. I recently heard a podcast with John Kingzett, who's an Ohio State professor who studies political attitudes. He surveyed people by asking how happy or unhappy they would be if their neighbor was in the opposing political party. And a majority of people were actually unhappy, and they said that 56% of them said that would make them unhappy. But then he asked a follow-up question and says, now imagine these neighbors are the kind of people who always say hello to you. How would you feel towards those neighbors given this information? And that number goes from 56 reporting that they'd be unhappy to only 8. Because people want to feel seen, heard, and understood. And the guidelines in Seeing Whiteness can help us connect with people in new ways. And I'll share my favorite difficult conversation story, which was with my father-in-law. We discussed quite imperfectly guns. I asked him to tell me about guns, and I left it open for him to say whatever was important to him. And he began with the mechanics of gun operation, the types and the parts. But with probing, he was able to open up about the emotional connection he harbors with guns, particularly about how his father, in a rite of passage, gave him a gun and the feelings that associated with him in that moment. And with that new knowledge, and after giving him the gift of listening, he was able to hear my stories of sending my kids to school, not knowing if I would see them again, imagining a giant hole in their chest and sleepless nights of worry at the hands of our American gun culture. And I offered counter to his bilateral thinking that a gun equals power to something different. Some families pass a silver cup or a bowling ball, or maybe have a cake with 13 candles as a rite of passage, and it doesn't kill anyone. And in that moment, we using our shared values of family fundamental values, we found agreement on some aspects of gun control policy. And by the end of the conversation, he agreed to write his Republican representatives asking for specific laws regarding gun control. We learn in Seeing Whiteness that we have to have hope, for without it, nothing gets done and nothing changes. And Brian Stevenson says that hope is your superpower and the enemy of injustice. My family members saw enough hope to take a different action, and I now have hope that conversations can change actions, our relationships, our world, and our democracy. Carolyn, if you'll change this slide, please.
Hold on.
And when talking with like-minded friends about conversations like these, I sometimes hear, but is it really worth it? Can minds really be changed? And so it's important to approach these conversations with realistic objectives in mind. Otherwise, they may not be worthwhile. If I had approached my family member with the goal of getting them to drive to the police station and give up all their guns and begin advocating for gun buyback programs, I would have failed miserably. Instead, approaching conversations with the goals of understanding, planting seeds, making isms uncomfortable, finding common ground to change habits, and ultimately deepen relationships is obtainable and it is worthwhile. Carolyn, next slide. So what might deeper relationships look like? It comes with feelings of humility, motivation, excitement, behaviors like reflection, believing, seeking, processing are the pathway to deeper, more honest, and loving relationships. During and after the conversation, I felt all of these, and it truly was one of the most honest and worthwhile conversations I've ever had. It empowers me to continue this work for a lifetime. So how do we put the Seeing Whiteness guidelines into place for conversations like these? Carolyn? One more. Thanks. How might this work? You may want to acknowledge the past, imperfect communication guidelines, ask permission to do something different, offer new guidelines, and offer an out. It could sound something like this. I realize that we don't usually talk politics, and I'm wondering if you might be willing to engage in this conversation with the understanding that I'm not trying to change your mind or belittle you, but to understand your point of view and to see where we might agree. We can stop at any time. Would that be okay? I'm curious about. And I love the words that Pam uses. So with that in mind, I'm going to pass it to Pam and maybe she'll share her words and then I'll have more of the conversation. Pam.
I thought your words were so beautiful, and your story's so inspiring and framing for, I think, why everyone came tonight and what we're hoping to not only have framed here in the context of Seeing Whiteness, which is what I'm planning to do next, but to save plenty of time to be in small groups, back in our pairs, to practice trying on the example that you just shared with the person or people we might make up, real or imagined. And then also to come back as a whole group and have an opportunity to talk about what worked, what didn't, what we learned, what we're still learning, and how we might take this forward. So Carolyn, if you'll please just switch us to the next slide. Next one. Awesome. One of the things that we've come to realize about Seeing Whiteness is that it's tied really closely to neuropsychology, positive psychology, and cognitive behavioral therapy. What we're actually doing is scientifically proven to work. So it's really exciting. There's a cue for those of you who have participated in Seeing Whiteness before. The cue is noticing when there's the absence of race, when my race matters, or when there's a moment of discomfort around race. That's the practice that we do daily or weekly with Seeing Whiteness for those of you who haven't had a chance to participate yet. We notice the cue when we feel that discomfort. That's when we either go into our old habit, which might be distancing, denial, guilt, shame, anger, fear, something from our fight or flight brain where my clear head is not thinking, I'm just going into my old habit. But what we have is an opportunity through neuroplasticity to build a whole new habit. And what we do in Seeing Whiteness is to build that new habit as taking a deep breath, slowing down. We're going to go through all the steps in a minute. But the idea is that by trying on a new routine, just practicing something that may or may not work, but after we do it 10 or 15 times, we'll have the memory in our body, in our brains of what it is to get the new reward. The new reward is calm. Every time I've ever used my Seeing Whiteness guidelines, I just feel so calm at the end because I've through humility and curiosity created space for something different to happen. And that is what we're looking for here. I would love to talk about the habit loop all day, but Carolyn, if you'll change the slide, we're going to get right to how Seeing Whiteness how the Seeing Whiteness tools might apply in a conversation about the election. So the very first thing in this cue, no, back up.
Oh,
back
sorry,
up.
sorry.
No. So calm and clear right here. What's so exciting is the first part of Seeing Whiteness is always slowing down, because I can't look for an opportunity to create a new habit or try on something different if I just rush right by and my body does what it always does when I'm in conversation with my relative or my neighbor or a person I've just met who I think I disagree with. So slowing down, not distancing myself, and using the tools that we use in Seeing Whiteness at the beginning each time of either noticing the feelings that come up for me and working like a wave through, like a feeling's going to come and a feeling's going to go. And if I watch it all the way through, then I can move on and get out of my fight or flight brain into my smart sage brain and be logical and calm to go forward. Or just something somatic, like take a breath or touch or look or hear. Any of those things can slow me down long enough to say, oh, I have an opportunity to do something different. And for my case, just to tell my story, as Ellen did this morning, I was at Hartsfield Jackson and I was talking to the woman who was cleaning in the store where they were selling books. And we picked up the magazine, each of us together, that had Kamala on the front. And I asked her if she was voting. After that, I had to slow down because her answer was, no, I am so frustrated with both of them. Nobody's doing anything for me. I'm definitely not voting this year. And Carolyn, if you'll click the box. So those of you who participated will know that practice self-focus. It's not like it's all about me. It's like, okay, I can't fix everything out there. What's my first step? If I start close in, what am I going to say next? And it's not okay to shame, blame, or attack myself or her. And if I need to lean out and take another breath before I figure out what to say, that's okay. I'll just sort of see where this goes. So we sort of took it slowly and around, and I can't remember exactly what happened next, but at some point I took the next step. I'm going to hit the next one, Carolyn. I put the next, that was what happened. I remembered that I was supposed to go to curious. And so I said, why do you feel that way? Tell me more about this. And she did. She talked about, that was at the point when she said, it's about the economy and neither one of them is going to help me. And at that moment, I was listening more than I talked. I was trying really hard not to fix. And I was practicing both and thinking by reminding myself that her point of view is her point of view and it's different from mine. And I'm going to create as much space as possible for her to tell me her story so that I can try my best to understand. Next one, Carolyn. After I got to the curiosity and heard a little bit more about her story was when I was ready to do the practice trying on part. I had kind of leaned out and in a couple of times and I don't remember, we talked about something else and we sort of came back to it. But what I tried on in that moment was something to the effect of, I've noticed, or it's really important, I've noticed that all of the chatter and not liking both of them is a tactic. It's a way to shut people down and not and to I were just talking about this when in our breakout. She said a way to suppress the vote. That's not what I said today, but I said something along those lines, not quite so directly. So I was practice trying on. I was waiting for her to say, and we did in fact go back and forth a number of times. This is the spot. So I'm going to go back to things under curiosity. One of the things Ellen said was about talking about the values rather than the policy or the decision. I've seen in other places the recommendation to what in your background makes you think that way, or what values do you hold that make this important to you? Anything that elevates the conversation to something that provides an opportunity for connection rather than fighting about the facts. So by elevating to talking about shutting down, wasn't talking about who you're going to vote for, it was addressing what she was talking about. And then in the creativity part, one of the things we've learned is about looking for agreement. So looking for the 10% agreement. So all along in my creativity part, I was looking for opportunities to agree with what she said. And I was, it's a brain thing again. Even if in these conversations, in other ones I've had where I say, I'm so glad we're having this conversation, and repeating back to folks, hey, this is what I heard you say. Is that what you said? All of those are scientifically proven tools for getting folks out of fight or flight and defensiveness brain and into creativity brain. And it's through creativity brain that we're able to find, take that 10% and then ideally get to what's called an upward spiral of agreement. The intent and impact of my actions. I actually took a big break. I've said break already a few times, but I did take a big break after I had presented the information about, or my perspective anyway, about shutting down. And somehow when we came back to it, if you want to go to the next little click, there are two more steps in this process, which is navigation and activation. So navigation is when I'm getting to sort of like the so what, right? All the creativity is leading us to what. And I don't know how it happened exactly, but I hadn't mentioned the candidates earlier. We had never mentioned the candidates. Anyway, the result of this story is she said, well, I'm voting for her. And I said, oh, you do have a choice. You do have a candidate. And she said, or I would vote for her, something like that. I do have a candidate. She said, oh, yeah. And I said, oh, then absolutely. Would you please? And I just made my request. It is so important at this time between the two of them, clearly, she's the better choice. And you not voting. And I told her all about the states where it would be decided. And our state was one, and every precinct had one person who was going to matter. And she's the person who was going to matter. And would she please, make an effort to vote? And she said yes. And then I said, do you know how? So that's activation. Now we're moving to, do you know how? Do you know where? What days are you off of work? Friday and Saturday, 7 to 7, Fulton County, go find your precinct, yada, yada, yada. The only thing I would have loved to have done was to have learned something I learned from a young friend. Just recently, she sent me an email and said, do you pledge to vote? And will you send me a picture when you do? And I wish I had asked the woman I was speaking to today to please send me a picture after she had agreed that she would go vote on Friday or so. I didn't have a good example for you all before today. And I was pleased that that happened. And I'm really excited to hear everybody else's stories as well. Carolyn has a super story too. And maybe, Carolyn, do you want to take just a minute and tell your story in the context of all of those steps?
Sure. Thanks. And thanks, Pam. That's so exciting. That's such a great story. And I'm so glad you took that opportunity. And Ellen, I love that your story too, resulted in such concrete action. I think that's amazing. I can't say that mine did, but it was still, I think, a really positive conversation. This summer, my husband and I went with my niece's husband and their 9-year-old son out west. We typically take the kids when they turn 9 to a national park trip. And I was so excited about it, but I knew that her husband and I had different views on a lot of this stuff, and we were going to spend 5 or 6 days together. So I knew it would come up. And it did, but I was really curious about him. I know some of his background, but I don't know, everything. So I was really curious about him and hoping that we could have some conversations. And he's like a former Atlanta police officer. Now he's a school resource officer. And I've seen sort of some of his personal wounds, both from that and from his childhood and the way he grew up. And we found some things that we could agree on, or at least have, just a really easy conversation about age limits for candidates. This was before President Biden had decided not to run. And Supreme Court, terms limits and things like that. We could have conversations about those kinds of things, and it didn't feel really particularly uncomfortable. But at some point, I sort of asked him, where do you think your views come from? And he said something that made me really sad. He said, we live in a world, an evil place full of evil people. And I just thought that was so sad. And it's kind of the opposite of how I feel. But with that strong view, feeling that way about the world, he also has taken on a personal belief about what a man is and how a man should be and be honorable and take care of their family and provide and stand up and, fidelity, etc. And so that's as strong in him, I think, as, he feels a real responsibility to make the world a better place by being an honorable person. So yeah, it was interesting to learn that about him. But our conversation eventually led to guns as well. And he has very strong views. We didn't come to any particular, agreement about it, but he answered all of my questions. I was able to use, like Pam said, some of the things I've learned from Seeing Whiteness, remaining curious, asking about, his experience now as a school resource officer. And so we got all the way through it, and I thought it was a great conversation. And the next morning he came to me and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry about our conversation yesterday. I hope you were not upset, and I hope I didn't say anything to offend you." And I felt so bad that he worried about it all night, but it made me realize he's not used to having those conversations. He had no practice. And so I shared with him, I said, "Listen, quite the opposite. I thought it was a great conversation, and I was so grateful that you shared your views. I didn't have any intention of changing your mind. I just really wanted to understand. And I felt like you really heard me, saying what I believed, and I didn't feel judged by you, and I didn't think we needed to come to agreement." For me, and I think he understood this too, was um, he couldn't unhear anything I said, nor could his 9-year-old son. So I was really happy about that, because I don't think he's necessarily hearing anything like what I typically was saying. So anyways, after that, I finally said, I've so enjoyed, we were on our way to the airport. I said, "I've enjoyed spending this time with you this week and getting to know you better." And I said, "Everything you've told me about being an honorable man, I don't think Trump is." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Convictions, sexual assault, fraud, business, all those kinds, hate speech, everything." And he honestly, I don't think had heard that he'd actually been convicted of so many of the different things. Yeah, I think he's, only hearing, like we said earlier, only hearing what he was being told, and he's not seeking other things. So again, I was glad I said what I said. And again, I think it was just really clear that they can't unhear what we said, and got practice to have that type of conversation.
May I add
Pam,
one thing? It sounded to me like you also made him feel safe. And that was important enough to turn around the next day and say to you, "I feel bad about XYZ." He had to have had some connection to you that you had made. So, yay.
such a good point. Thanks, Eve. Thanks, Eve.
That sense of that we're reweaving relationships and reweaving democracy, regardless, without being attached to a particular result. That
Yeah,
if my intent is to reweave relationships and reweave democracy, I will have gotten there wherever there is. And it's all lifelong.
exactly.
Would you all like to go into? Thank you, Carolyn. I loved hearing it. Would you all like to go into pairs again and each tell the other either or what we had planned for the next 8 minutes was to be in pairs for you all to have an opportunity to try these on again, either with an imaginary person or a role play. Sorry, let me hit send. A role play. It could either be with an imaginary person or someone very specific. You would have 4 minutes for one role play where you're playing the person who is you, and the other person, you'll tell your partner who the other person is. And then after 4 minutes, Carolyn will tell us to switch, and the other person will get to play themselves, and they'll tell you who you're playing. And maybe some time of role play, and then maybe a little bit of time of what did I learn from the role play, or what am I taking away?
And yes, Cindy, I'll add you to a
I
room.
loved Olivia's this.
Well, we just
That's
had
how I
that
feel at the end of
hopefully-
my conversation as well.
It's just Pat said hopefully at the end, and I thought, yeah,
We're all going to do this before we jump off the Zoom. I'm going to turn it to Ellen to help take the learnings.
Yeah, so do we want to do that before what's next or what's next first? I can't remember.
I think the learnings first.
Okay, so we would love to open the floor to hear what learning you have had tonight, whether it was in your groups or in the whole group. What has something that sat with you tonight?
I'll speak. I got permission to take forever with this person that I role played, to win their trust, and invite them to step out and share more of their background and how they came to have the beliefs they did. That really resonated for me.
Mhm.
The
I learned
conversation.
that 8 minutes is not enough time for anything. But we started talking about, kind of the breadth of baggage that can get in way of these conversations. So, I was talking about a sister-in-law who is very religious. So her conversation shut down would be, you're a sinner and anything you say doesn't really matter, and how you get how you go from there in a conversation,
How would you?
I don't know. That's why we don't talk to her.
I think about the point in that circle, because that's the cue, right? She
Yeah.
triggers with, I'm going to do this.
Well,
Curiosity would just get you to God said so.
okay.
I think I was very struck today by this need to find common ground wherever that may be and to focus on it to start off with, which would then engender trust between us. That's all I have right now. It's been really helpful. Thank you, you guys.
I was trying to remember some of the words from Ellen's circles, and it brought to mind that maybe I missed the Seeing Whiteness guidelines somewhere. So I had to really do this on the fly, and so I need to get the information and review moving forward. But I think Olivia and I had a wonderful exchange.
I'll put a link to the guidelines or send them in the next email.
I think this, for me, Mimi here, is really just coming back into this space with the Seeing Whiteness guidelines and being almost kind of forced by my choice to be here, to use them, and just a reminder of that. I really appreciated in particular, the usefulness of the self-focus as an orientation of that standing back a little, like in the listening, that really reorients, and it just kind of an affirmation of that, the pieces in that, of that calm and listening and self-focus, because there's something about self-focus that allows more space for the other to be there.
Right.
And that's very evident when you're, oh, it's like I'm not the only one here, because there's something about self-focus that is here, and then otherwise you're just out there with your right ideas, like in a bigger way that takes up too much space for the other.
We have 1 more minute. Anyone else want to share?
I know I was completely late, and what I don't know if you covered, but I look forward to joining more of these is knowing how much someone feels so strongly about something to be able to even get to the part of being curious. So like from my few 20 minutes that are here, like I look forward to like, okay, it's all about tell me more. I'm curious of this, but like it's so difficult even when you start with the, someone's wearing a MAGA hat, like it's hard to get past it. So it was helpful to see your curiosity chart and the words to try to help get beyond there.
Well, and I think also just to trust that people arrive at their ideas and opinions and worldviews, not just randomly, but there was something about it that assisted their living as they were growing up or maybe today. And so that kind of basic human respect that you have a right to wear that MAGA hat. I may not agree with why you wear it, but that seems like a good thing too.
Right.
There definitely are those pre-steps before curiosity. Compassion and slow down, and no distancing or denying, or guilt or shame or fear or anger, but rather breathing, noticing my feeling, getting from out of my fight or flight brain to into my calm brain so that I can even start to engage in the conversation. That if I'm operating from anger, fear, guilt, shame, any of that I can't get to curiosity. There ain't no curiosity back there.
It said it was recording. Will you send out so I can listen to the most important part at the beginning? Okay, good.
Absolutely will. And if you give me 2 seconds, I should have the guidelines. And otherwise I will put them in the follow-up email.
And Carolyn, would you be able to share the what's next slide and I'll close this out?
Yeah.
What's
Oh,
next?
Give me
is to
1
make-
second. Sorry.
That's okay. I'll go ahead and start talking about it. What's next is to make a plan to vote. Make sure you know where to go, when to go, how to go, and take someone with you. Try our conversations on in real life and send a photo of you and your in real life conversation partner to seeingwhiteness@gmail.com. We'd love to see it. And if you've enjoyed this conversation and you have more that you'd like to know or share or discuss, we would love to do that again too. So we're offering the next 2 weeks, Wednesdays at noon. We would love to be able to check in and continue this work. And if you haven't yet, or if you'd like to do it again, please join us for all 6 sessions of Seeing Whiteness and our future monthly gatherings that Carolyn will send out information for.
With Pat in November.
Yes. And I'd like to ask you to we have 1 more minute and we'll be finished. But if you would like to open the chat and drop an appreciation, a learning, a relearning, or a hope in it, I would love to see that. And while you're doing that, I will close us with a little poem from the book Inward by Young Pueblo. And it's a quote. It's a real short poem. My faith for a better future is in the people who are turning the idea of unconditional love into a way of life. May your conversations be unconditional love. Thank you. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much.